Well, good morning. Good morning to those who are watching online or listening later on podcast. Today we turn our attention to the cross of Jesus. And I want to start by asking you this question. As you look at a cross, what do you see? Because throughout history, on canvas or wood or stone or metal, the crucifixion of Jesus has been painted or sculpted or carved or molded billions of times. Billions of times, this symbol. Everybody almost in the entire world has seen a crucifix. It's an anthropological absurdity just how common the cross is. From the beginning of time, as far as we can tell, humans have always had this thing about them that we create images and we create symbols that help us to represent and interpret the world. And so as a species, if you look through our history, we're sort of given over to symbolic artistry. And so whether it's cave paintings, and you can see some of these if you go to somewhere like in Europe, places like Spain, 64,000-year-old paintings on caves, or if you go to masterpieces in museums, you'll see them. Human beings, we always have this attempt to try to depict through art and symbols the things that give us the most meaning in life. So consider this strange fact as we start this series on the cross, that for humanity, the single most depicted story image is of a man nailed to a tree. From sort of looking at humanity, or from an anthropological point of view, it is really bizarre that Jesus of Nazareth, portrayed as crucified, would be the most replicated work of art in human history. Surely this says something about the human experience. It certainly says something about our faith, because our faith as followers of Jesus finds its middle, its center, the epicenter of our faith is the cross. In the Bible, at the center of the Bible, you actually don't find just a bunch of wisdom about spirituality or advice on how to overcome difficulty. If you read through the Bible, it's not primarily a very good handbook on how to achieve success or to find, practical applications for your life. What you find in the middle of the Bible is a cross, a mystery, a mystery. This is why Paul would say this. He says to the Corinthians, I resolved to know nothing while I was with you, except Jesus Christ and Him crucified. Now, if you were to go back to the time of Paul, or to the time of the cross, nobody in that part of the world, in that time in history, in the first century, at the end of the first century AD, could have predicted that within 100 years or so, there would be millions of people that believed that a crucified Jew from Galilee was indeed the Son of God and Savior of the world. And yet that's what happened. The cross just took over. And the people who were part of the Jesus movement originally, they didn't try to prove anything about the cross. They just proclaimed the message. They just proclaimed it. They proclaimed the message, and at the center of the message was something that is probably hard for us to understand in a world of shiny crosses and crosses without any blood on them. It's hard for us to understand how gruesome and how strange it would be that the symbol of torture and execution would become a symbol of a movement. And it's almost impossible to believe that at the end of the story of Jesus spreading 200-300 years, turned the entire Roman Empire around, and the cross altered the history of Western civilization. How do you explain that? Well, we explain it as followers of Jesus with one simple word: resurrection. That's how we explain it, because the Romans crucified tens of thousands of people, mostly slaves, a lot of rebels, but crucifixion, even though it was horrible, was not uncommon. What was unique is Easter. Easter sheds light on the cross, because at the cross, it's not just Jesus crucified, it's Jesus crucified and risen. So when we as Christians, I know we divided up sort of Good Friday and Easter, but they go together. You can't separate the cross and Easter. They run together. When you speak of the cross, you always speak of the cross in light of the resurrection. Like we see the meaning of the cross because the resurrection shines light on it, proves all of the things to be true. So we can survey the cross, we can look at the cross, we can say that it's beautiful, we can ponder it, we can try to fathom the mystery of the cross only because we see it in light of, it is illuminated by Easter. And so the best way that I can think of to describe the cross is that the cross is like a beautiful diamond. And no matter, when you turn the diamond one way, if the light's hitting it one way, there's all these colors that are demonstrated and brought into the world. But if you turn a diamond just a little bit different, there's a whole bunch of new colors, a whole bunch of new meaning. And so the mystery is the cross is that with Easter shining upon it, there's all of these meanings. It's like a diamond that's got this light, bright light shining on it, and the diamond can just turn. And with the light of the resurrection shining on it, you can see different things. And so we come over to the cross and we say, oh, well, from this angle, the cross is a picture of forgiveness. The eternal moment of forgiveness, where all of the sins of the world was brought into one place and one time, and sin was dealt with. But if you look back here, you can't see it, but I can. The cross is also a place where we discover what it means to suffer, and to suffer as God does. And it's a powerful source from this angle. It's beautiful. Next week we'll talk about how the cross helps the hurt. But from back here, I wish you could see it. From back here, the light comes to the back. The cross is a picture of adoption, where we are not just declared that our name is cleared, we're given a new name. And from over here, the cross is actually a place of reconciliation, where we can be reconciled with God and with others. And from every angle, the cross brings different light. And that's why it's a mystery to be fathomed. It's not a theory to be understood. It's like a diamond. It's where we discover who God is. It's where from a different angle we discover who we are. Where from a different angle we discover who other people are. The cross ultimately says, this is what God is like. This is how valuable you are. This is how valuable everyone else is. From every angle, the cross brings new light. And so this morning what I'd like to do, and we're just going to look at different angles as we lead up towards Easter on the cross. This morning I'd like to do my best to suggest how Paul, the Apostle Paul, how he viewed the cross. He talks about it in lots of ways, but this morning I just want to encourage you as you look at the cross to see it as Paul did. And here's what I see Paul seeing when he sees the cross. I think Paul would say, listen, church, be offended by the cross. I'm here to offend you this morning. Boast in the cross and find your freedom in the cross. First of all, there is an offense in the cross. I don't know how many of you, I don't know if you should raise your hands on this or not. I should have thought this through a little more. How many of you would say that you are easily offended? Yeah, you're offended that I even brought this up in church, right? Most of the time, that's not something that we are, something to be proud of. But there are times to be offended. And I want to suggest to you that this morning, you let the cross offend you. I shouldn't say I'll offend you. I want to suggest that the cross can offend you. There's a sense in which the cross, I hope you've discovered this in your journey, the cross is insulting. Let's start there. The cross is disturbing. The cross is repulsive and irritating. You say, come on, Steve. Is that true? Is that true? I thought so. Check this out. He says, brothers and sisters, if I'm preaching circumcision, which the people in the church in Galatia were adding that to the grace of God, he says, why am I still being persecuted? In that case, the offense of the cross has been abolished. There's a sense in which if you don't know, if you haven't been repulsed by the cross, you haven't understood it. Okay? You need to be offended this morning. Come to church and be offended. You need to be offended. We don't talk about this too much because we put crosses up and we put nice lights around them, and you have a shiny gold one around your neck. I have a nice wooden one hanging from the rearview mirror in my car. We don't really think of crosses as offensive, but they should offend. In fact, Paul, as he journeyed with the cross and tried to understand it, recognized that anybody who understood the cross in his world thought it was crazy or foolish or offensive. Some of those people he describes as the Jews and Greeks. He puts it this way: Jews demand signs, Greeks look for wisdom. He says, but we preach the cross, Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews, foolishness to Gentiles. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Gentiles, Christ the power and wisdom of God. In fact, he'd put it a little earlier in that chapter of 1 Corinthians. He would say, the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. What is he talking about? Well, I think what he's talking about is, he says, first of all, we'll start with the Greeks. The Greeks look for wisdom. The cross is offensive to people who are looking for wisdom. It makes no sense. It's foolishness to the intellectuals. The cross just seems like it goes against everything that they value. So the Greeks are the intellectuals, the ones looking for wisdom, and maybe this is you this morning. These would be the intellectuals and the educated part of society. They found the cross offensive. So there was this hostility, not necessarily to Jesus during the time of Paul, but to the message of Jesus crucified. Because educated people don't mind Jesus, but they're offended when someone says Jesus had to die. Because for lots of people, and in our society too, Jesus is looked at, he's a great teacher. He's intellectual people like that. Why? Because intellectual people, which is a lot of us here this morning, we believe that the problems of this world could be solved if we just had a little more education. If people just understood. People just had a little more teaching. That really what they need is wisdom. And so I'm going to put in the comments on the YouTube video all of the wisdom that people should have, or on Twitter or on Facebook. Because if you people were just more informed, then you would be able to do the right thing. You just need a little bit more education. So the idea of Jesus being a teacher is not offensive at all. He says, make peace, be a peacemaker, turn the other cheek. And for intellectual people, they're like, yes, Jesus was fantastic in his wisdom. But the cross is offensive because of this point. It says that the problem with the world is not wisdom. The problem with the world is not that you just need to be educated a little bit more, and you need a little bit more information, and you need to be trained, and you need a bigger worldview, and you need to get some more thoughts in your mind that are just a little bit broader. The cross says the problem is not wisdom, it's your wicked heart. If Jesus had come and he had just said, hey, let me tell you how to live better. Like, you need to love people. Here's what you need to do to have a good marriage. Here's what you need to have a good family. Here's what you need to be a person of integrity and have meaning in life. That would be basically a compliment. You're good people. I'll just give you some teaching to help you along so that you can upgrade your living. That's not insulting, nothing offensive about that. But Jesus came to die to basically say, wisdom is not your problem. It's not that you don't have enough information. It's not lack of education. It's your corrupt nature. And when someone tells you that you're corrupt, that's offensive, isn't it? The cross is here to say intellect, not enough. Wisdom, not enough. Being educated, not enough. In other words, you aren't a person that just has unlimited potential and unlimited capacity if you would just go and learn some things. No, there's something deeply wrong with you. This is why one of the great debates, I guess, in the 20th century, you could say, was how should an economy be run? Like, should capitalism be the way? Should socialism be the way? We still kind of debate this even in our day. Like, what's the answer? I'll tell you the answer today. The answer is that if the human heart was not so full of self-interest, if the human heart was honest and never exploited another person, it wouldn't matter which system we used, right? It wouldn't matter. Any system would work, because the problem is not lack of wisdom or coming up with the right system. The problem is the radical selfishness of the human heart. And it offends people. It offends me. It offends you. It should offend you. You're the problem. The problem is your heart. So the Greek wanted wisdom. They thought if they could get their philosophy right, their educational system right, if they could just figure out in their minds a better way of living. And the cross comes along and says, listen, it's not enough. It's your heart that's the problem. In fact, it's such a problem that it will take nothing less than the death of the Son of God to deal with your heart. Or to put it another way, the presence of the Son of God on the cross is an indictment on all of us. Starting to feel offended yet? I hope so. Second group that Paul talks about is the Jews. He says the Jews, they demand a sign. The Jews were not like the intellects of the time. They were the common people of the time. And their understanding, and they're looking for a sign or looking for power or looking for exceptions, had to do with their worldview. And their worldview was a little bit different. They didn't see the answer in education or thinking the right thoughts or just learning some more things. They actually saw the world in terms of people who were either good or bad. That some people were just bad people and some people were good people. And your job was to become one of the good people. The good people. Work hard, be a good parent, be a good citizen, be a good employee. Basically, be a decent chap. That was the goal for the Jewish worldview. And that is what will save you. There's the good, there's the bad. That was what will make the world a better place. If we were among the good people, the world would be a better place. And so the problems of the world are not that we need education. The problems of the world are those people out there that are criminals, that are evil, that are abusing their power. Those are those people out there. They're the problem. You ever thought like that? I know you have. If we just had the right politician. And Paul says, to those people, the cross is actually a stumbling block. Because the cross says, listen, there's no difference between the good and the bad. Are you offended now? I'm starting to be. I'm offending myself. You people who live a good, honest, moral life, and the person out there who is in prison, who has done terrible things, the cross says when it comes to your relationship with God, no difference. Come on. That's offensive. Paul puts it like this. You know this passage. Righteousness from God comes through faith in Jesus Christ. To who? To all who believe. There is no difference. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God and are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Jesus Christ. We all are on level ground when it comes to our relationship with God. We all need the cross. You say, Steve, let me see if I understand what you're saying. Are you saying, preacher, that the person who is a murderer on death row, all he has to do is receive the message of the cross and he will be in the same boat as me, who is coming to church, listening to sermons, trying in my best to live a good life? The cross says yes. It's so democratic. It offends everybody. right? Not just the elite, but the common people too. Common people too. Prudes, they're all right, old, young. There's no difference. And unless you start to understand what happened at the cross as offensive, it will never be wonderful. Never be wonderful for you. Until you recognize how far you were from God and the distance that he had to travel to get to you, you're not going to understand how amazing grace is, because the cross says you don't have a chance, and neither does anybody else, except for grace. Grace. Complete mercy, complete charity, nothing you can do to merit it. In order to come and receive the grace, all you need is to admit your need. And that's offensive, isn't it? I'll tell you why it's offensive. Because most of our lives, we have been building things in our lives, character qualities, accomplishments, influence, power, resources. And we take pride in those things. And the cross says, none of those things matter unless you come with your need, not with your resources. Grace is actually very offensive to your pride, if you understand it. A lot of us, I don't know about you, if you're like me, it's not easy to ask for help. How many of you would say that that's easy for you to ask for help? It's hard, isn't it? Why? This is why. Because it's hard to admit our need, and yet the cross says that's what you contribute. You contribute your need. Grace, grace, grace. So Paul basically makes a pretty good point that the cross should be offensive. I hope that you hear this in the way I intend it to. But he also says, if you are offended by the cross, like you realize what an affront it is, he says, when you understand that, it will set you free to experience the next thing that he talks about, and that is, then you can start to boast in it. You say, what do you mean? I thought you were just getting rid of pride. Well, Paul puts it this way. He says, may I never boast except in the cross, through which the world crucified to me and me to the world. What does it mean by boasting? Is basically the center, the thing that you treasure the most, that gives you the emotional security to walk through this world. I can tell what you boast in. You can tell what I boast in by just having a short conversation. Probably the thing that you boast in will come up. I was talking to somebody. I was at a funeral last week talking to somebody, and within a few minutes, how wonderful their children are came up. Talking to someone else, same funeral service, talked to somebody else, it immediately came up, how they have gathered. Well, it doesn't take long. Just listen to your conversations. Listen to what you say, and you'll discover what you're boasting in. It's where you get your emotional strength to face the world. What Paul is saying is, once you understand how the cross offends you, you can then move to the place where you don't just believe in the cross, but actually you boast in it. You find your center in it. You find that the deep place inside of you. God forbid is the King James version of that verse. God forbid that I should glory in anything save the cross of Christ. And what he means is the cross has become for him the source of meaning. It's become the center of his universe. It's become for him the inner well inside of him, the inner fountain inside of him that enables him to do what he needs to do and to face what he needs to face and to challenge the people who need to be challenged. And Paul is saying, I boast in it. I find my confidence, my hope, my center in it. You put it this way. I don't know what you might say that you boast in, but if you boast in anything else but the cross, you're not free. Let me explain why. Because if you boast, as Paul was talking about, in your circumcision, or in other words, your religious history, if you boast in your pedigree, if you boast in your ability to do good things or to have good money or whatever it is, any of those things, if you boast in them, then you're in a very fragile position. You're in a very fragile condition. And Paul knows this. For example, I don't know about you, but one of the things that I boast in sometimes is my performance, the things that I do. And so as a kid, we learn this very young. If you do the right thing as a kid, you know, it could be, say, Dada, and from then on, then our family applauds us for our performance, right? If you get good marks, applause. If you win awards, applause. Like nobody gets applause for getting a D or an F, right? You get applause if you perform in the right way. And so this for most of us, this peaks in high school. Let's say it's sports. A lot of you, and me too, when you're in high school, probably your athletic career peaked. I know some of you are exceptions, but for most of us, let's be honest. It peaked when you were in high school, and you were a big fish in a small pond. But then you went to college, or you went to university. For very few of us did our performance athletically peak in university and college. Maybe some of you are the exception to that, but I don't think there's very many of us that went on beyond that. Maybe you did. Maybe you went and played professional sports. Well, maybe, but you certainly didn't play, you weren't the best at the best professional sports, and you certainly weren't for very long. I was thinking this of Sidney Crosby. He had it all, and now he's getting a little older, isn't he? And somebody else is taking over his position. And sometimes you talk to people, I don't know if you've done this, I do this when I talk to people from my high school days. We remember the good old days, and man, we were good. We were better than in our memories than we ever were in real life. And there's a sense in which it's very sad when we boast about it, because it's like, you were a somebody, and now you're a nobody. Or maybe you boast in your accomplishments. I find it very sad sometimes when you talk to people, and the thing that they most want to talk about is something that happened years and years and years ago. And some of you have had great accomplishments. Maybe you did some fantastic things in the past, but it's 2025. Here we are. And a lot of you can boast in your accomplishments, but listen, time is going to go by, and those are going to be in the past. Some of you can boast in your athletics, but there's always going to be somebody better. There always will be somebody better. It's very fragile to boast in your accomplishments. Maybe you boast in your figure. Let me just say this. It's fantastic if you do, but it's not going to last. There's a lot of evidence to base that statement on. But not so much even what do we boast on the outside. What do you boast about on the inside? Like, what makes you think you are a worthwhile person? What makes you think that you have value and can face the day? A Christian is somebody who finds out that there's something at the cross that gives tremendous freedom. Paul says, God forbid that I boast in anything else. You see, what does this look like? Let me try to get practical here. I think for you and I, as followers of Jesus, we can boast in the cross, first of all, intellectually. Again, I don't talk about this too much, but when the great Christians throughout history looked at the cross, they never said, this is what the cross means. That would be so arrogant. Instead, what they said was, when I survey, they said, there's mystery here. Intellectually, of all the things that you can stick in your brain through social media or wherever, put the cross in there and think about it. Just think about it. It just blows your mind, the potential ramifications of what took place there. That the love and the holiness of God came together in a way that fulfilled each of them. Astounding. That God is high and lifted up, yes, but right there he's stooping and vulnerable and in shame. He's omnipotent, he's above all else, but he's also hanging on a tree. He works his will through history and almightiness, but also through suffering, sacrificial love. Every year for many years, I've studied the cross leading up to Easter, and many, many books, Lent books on my shelves. And at the end of it all, I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. Boasting in the cross intellectually. Think about it. But also boast in the cross personally. I'm not saying all your problems would be over if you boasted in the cross instead of yourself, but I do think your problems would be under control. Try this. If next time you're angry, you're depressed, you're fearful, you're scared, ask yourself this question. What is it that I'm so afraid of losing? And then look at it and say with Paul, God forbid that I should glory in that thing. The reason that we don't feel free in life is because the things that we boast in are fragile. So many conversations with people, and thinking about myself too, expose how insecurities dominate this time in history. There's an epidemic of insecurity in our world, isn't there? This comes so clear if you've lived in the world of sports like I have, coaching and different levels of sports. If you talk to people, coaches are as bad as any of the players. If you talk to people about a sport, you will almost always see them doing what I call pumping their own tires. Remind you how good they were and the influence they had. Kind of competition. It seems to go on and on and on. Listen, men, there's an epidemic of insecure men in our culture. Very, very insecure. And we see this, to have men in our world that do not have to compete, to be set free from competition. And to find women in our culture who are set free from the incessant urge to compare. To find a group of people who have a source inside themselves that holds whether they're criticized or whether they're praised. To find a group of people who can rejoice when other people rejoice. Do you see? Where do you put your boast? When you shift your boast to the cross and what the cross says about God and what the cross says about you, shift your boast there, you will be set free. Imagine being set free from the need to compare. How would that feel? How would you walk then? Imagine being able to be set free from the need to compete, from the need to accomplish, from the need to find value in what other people think of you. That would be freedom. Maybe that's why Paul puts it this way. He says, for me, because I put the boast in the cross, the world has been crucified to me. It doesn't have anything for me. And I to the world, they don't get me either. They don't understand me either. Put it another way, you'll never be free until you're free from the world. Or to put it another way, you'll never stand for truth if you can't stand the thought of other people disliking you. You'll never be able to love people when you're desperate to try to have them approve of you. You'll never be free. But at the foot of the cross, you change your boast. You can walk downtown Calgary, and you can see people who have nothing, who are addicted, people who are living on the street, and you will, if you put your boast in the cross, you will have no sense of superiority over them because you know there's no difference. You can look at somebody and you can see where they are, no matter how bad they seem, and you're like, we're in the same boat. No superiority. And you can look at people who are succeeding really well, and you have no inferiority because you're free. Do you see? Sometimes I think of it like this. In our world, it's almost like we sort of walk through this world asking ourselves and asking those around us, do I matter? It's easy to see in teenagers, but You can see it in all ages. Where you walk through this world, if I dress like this, will I matter to you? If I do my hair like this, will you pay attention to me? If I do this kind of exercise so that my figure looks this way, if I achieve these things, if I tell stories of other people that are famous that I know, if I give you an account of my resume, will I matter to you? It's almost like if I join this club, if I join this group, if I get this degree, will I be good enough? Will I be handsome enough? Will I get your attention? Will I matter? How do you explain the way that people dress sometimes? My only explanation is we all want to matter, and we're all crying out with this question, do I matter? And then you come to the cross as you head towards, and the cross says, you matter to me. And if you download that into your heart, that the God of the universe loved you that much, you will be free. Because the cross says, I didn't love you because you had something in you that was valuable and I went out and found it. The cross is the value-creating love. And if you go there, you will receive you, and you will be set free from the world. What do you see when you see the cross? You see the cross. Have you been offended? You should be. Where do you place your boast? What's your center? Is it fragile? Will time and disease steal it from you? And are you free?